Hey everyone, this is Poorman 973, and even though he's kind of bloomy, there we go. I am in the National Presidential Wax Museum, and I've got here President Donald J. Trump behind me, and we're going to be kind of showing things off a little bit, talking about some of the things we know about him. Now, I don't know very much about some of our most recent living presidents, so I don't know a whole heck of a lot about Mr. Trump, Mr. Obama, Mr. Biden, or even a whole about like Jimmy Carter or whatnot. So I don't know a whole lot about them, but I do know quite a bit about some of our more far-long deceased presidents. So hopefully we can have lots of fun here. And here we go. Here, just making sure we get Mr. Trump here without so much bloom. There we go. Here we got our most current president, Mr. Joseph Biden. Actually, he looks really close to the real Joe. I say they actually did a really good on this one. I'm not sure if that says really good job on the Wax Museum or a really sad thing about Joe. Alright, next up we got ourselves Barack Obama. Looks like he's giving a speech of some sort. And once again, I don't know much about Mr. Obama. Going over here, we got Mr. George Washington, first officially elected president of the United States. He wasn't technically the first leader of the United States, but he was the first officially elected president of the United States, where he won every electoral college vote twice. He's well known for stepping down after a second term, making that pretty much the norm. Several had tried, but most had followed his example of running only 2 terms. The only ever succeeding is Franklin Delano Roosevelt. In here we have his wife Martha and Betsy Ross with the flag for the United States. George is the only president not to serve in the Executive Mansion, as it was known at the time. Otherwise, that we know as the White House today, it was not known as the White House until Theodore Roosevelt had given it was a nickname at the time, but was not officially known that until Theodore Roosevelt had officially named it as the White House. He served his terms at his home in Mount Vernon, but did help in the construction and planning of the city of Washington, D.C. Alright, over here looks like we have several signing members of the Declaration of Independence, including Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, Robert Livingston, Robert Sherman, and Thomas Jefferson. John Adams and Thomas Jefferson were respectively the second and third presidents of the United States. Here we have John and Tom. John Adams was the second president of the United States. He more or less had a fairly miserable presidency following after George. He just didn't do very well. Thomas Jefferson, he's mostly known for purchasing the Louisiana Purchase from France, more than doubling the size of the United States of America. He's also known for being the architect for the Declaration of Independence. A lot of people think he did it entirely by himself. That's not entirely true. But he was the primary architect of it, so basically he did several drafts of it, and he primarily wrote it, but he was helped by many other people. Alright, come in here. We've got all sorts of people in here. Now, some of these people I do know who are, some of them I do not. We'll start on one side of the room and we'll go from the other. Now, the presidents that we have in this room are James Madison, James Monroe, John Adams, and Martin Van Buren. That is the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 8th president. We'll start over here with Mrs. John Q. Adams. See, I don't know too much about the president's wives, so. And behind her we have James Monroe, 5th president, most well known for the Monroe Doctrine, which basically told the European nations that you worry about your side of the hemisphere, we'll worry about ours. You do not come over here and bring your drama over here, and we will worry about our drama over here. Next over here we have Henry Clay. Henry Clay was a man who sought after the presidency time and time after again, and he never won the presidency, but he did win Secretary of State, which was seen at the time as the stepping stone to the presidency, even though he never actually made it there. At one point, he did make a sort of they think he made a sort of a backroom deal to make, I think it was Adams, John Quincy Adams, president instead of Jackson in one of the presidency, and President Jackson never forgave him for that. Back there we have Dolly Madison. Dolly Madison is most famous for actually, I believe, pulling out some of the most famous paintings that still currently hang in the White House after it was burned during the War of 1812. She stayed to make sure that a lot of the historical artifacts and whatnot that still reside in Washington, D.C. are still there. Then right next to Madison, we have her husband, President James Madison, president who was president during the War of 1812, the only sitting president to ever come under fire from an enemy when the Washington, D.C. was basically burnt to the ground from British invasion. Alright, next we have over here, we have President Martin Van Buren. I actually don't remember very much about President Martin Van Buren, only the fact that he was not a very good president. And next to him, apparently we have his daughter-in-law, Angelica. That's her right here. Alright, next we have Daniel Webster. I don't remember who he is, so. Then we have President John Q. Adams, the first dad's son president. Obviously, he is the son of John Adams, the second president, and like I said, he made a deal with Clay to become the president because basically Jackson and him more or less had a tie, and it went to a backroom deal, and he became president. Then we have John C. Calhoun. He is very important in history, but I can't remember right now, so we'll pass him by right now. All right, over here we have the presidents who were never actually elected, but at least some of them. We've had 8 presidents pass away while in office, and we have 5 presidents here. Right here we have Millard Fillmore, who succeeded Zachary Taylor. Zachary Taylor, I believe.
Sorry.
Zachary Taylor, I believe, died after he ate a bowl of cherries and a glass of milk, complained of stomach pains, and he passed away not soon after, but I can't remember what of. All I know is that he wasn't poisoned and it was just some sort of illness. Then we have Andrew Johnson standing in the back there with his hand on President Arthur's shoulder there. Andrew Johnson succeeded President Lincoln after he was shot. If they would have thought he would have become president, they would have put him as the vice president. He was basically put on to garner more votes because he was more sympathetic to the people who that weren't Lincolnites, basically, who wanted the slaves freed and all that kind of stuff. And he really did not do his best to rebuild the nation and more or less put the country backwards of where it should have gone after the Civil War. Then we have Chester Arthur, who succeeded Garfield after Garfield was shot. And Arthur was actually a fairly rich stockbroker, and he considered moving into the White House as a downgrade from his normal standard of living. And the way he decided to celebrate becoming president of the United States was to go shopping. And he's one of the ones that went in and said, the White House is completely unacceptable, and spent tons of the nation's money to redesign it and rebuild it, because it was actually falling apart. We're talking leaking roofs and falling apart floors, and it really did need it. It was something that was needed. Alright, we're moving on to John Tyler, that succeeded William Henry Harrison, the first president to ever die in office. We'll probably get to him later. William Henry Harrison only lasted for 30 days. John Tyler did okay. He was a good president. Then we have Henry Ford. Henry Ford came after Nixon. After Nixon resigned, he is well known to be clumsy, but it was also during a time where TV outlets and news was becoming prevalent, and more accidents and mistakes and all that kind of stuff was getting recorded more and more. And he became one of the first presidents to ever be recorded more often, and he became more of a joke. Over here we have Andrew Jackson, and this is Rachel Jackson. I'm really glad they included Rachel Jackson, because Rachel was pretty much despised by the other elite in Washington, D.C., and they became known as the Battle of the Petticoats, where he basically ordered the other ladies to spend time with her. He was voted in after that bad backroom deal with John Quincy Adams, and he's the only president who preferred to be called General instead of Mr. President while in office. He did a relatively okay job, but he is also the president responsible for sending all of the Native American tribes from the eastern coast off to the west. Here he is, William Henry Harrison. William Henry Harrison was and the ninth president. Unfortunately, he died only 30 days into service. He gave the longest inaugural address to this day. And unfortunately, it was really cold that day, and the president caught pneumonia and unfortunately passed away 30 days later. At the time, they didn't even know that President Tyler was going to even succeed him. They had no idea what the actual succession was going to be. Was the vice president going to succeed him? Was the Secretary of State going to succeed him? No one expected a president to actually pass away in office. It was a very confusing time, and they finally decided that, okay, so the vice president was going to succeed him. And William Henry Harrison was a general. He had a slogan while it was trying to get him voted in. He had his general name was Tippecanoe. They said, Tippecanoe and Tyler too. Vote for Tippecanoe. Alright, here is the man, the myth, the legend. We've got Abraham Lincoln, number 16. Abraham Lincoln was our president during the American Civil War. I always call it the American Civil War because you always have to remember that we're not the only one to have one. He served our country from 1860 to 1864. He's called the Great Emancipator for serving the Emancipation Proclamation, but a lot of people don't realize the Emancipation Proclamation only freed states in the southern states, which technically was a foreign country. Now, he did free the slaves with the 17th Amendment, which he had to fight tooth and nail. He had to beg, plead, borrow, and offer so many deals just to get the vote to pass, which it just barely did. The 17th Amendment passed just barely to get through, and thank goodness it did. And we have our country to this day thanks to this man right here. Here we have President Grant. Now, Ulysses S. Grant was actually not originally born Ulysses S. Grant. He was actually born, I believe it was Simon Ulysses Grant. But they put his name in wrong when he went in to, oh gosh, I can't remember, the military college.
Annapolis? No, that's West Point.
West Point. They put his name in wrong when he went to West Point, and they put him as Ulysses S. Grant. He never complained, so he says, okay, that's me. This is him at Harper's Ferry when he signed the peace deal with General Lee. He was U.S. Grant was the commander of all the Union Army before he became President of the United States. He was probably the most photographed man in the entire world. He was known the world over, and was a shoo-in to win the presidency when he ran. His presidency was amuck with scandals, and he had a tough go of it and giving positions to his best friends instead of people that probably could have done the job better. But he did his best, and he was a man of war that longed for peace, and did his best to try to continue the peace. Here we go, number 11, President James Polk. President James Polk was kind of drunk, but he did not drink during his presidency. He suffered some major tragedies just before his presidency. His son died in a train accident. Hope I'm remembering, that might have been Pierce. Can't remember if that was Polk or Pierce. Maybe disregard to that. Maybe I should cut this part out. James Polk. Don't mix him up with Pierce. Zachary Taylor. We talked about him a little bit earlier. He was our 12th president. As I said, that he is a president that passed away while in service to our nation. He died of some sort of stomach ailment. I think all I remember is that he ate a bowl of cherries and a glass of milk, complained of stomach pains, and was dead not too long after. Franklin Pierce. Looks like Franklin's cracked. I don't mean... Not out of his mind. He's got a big crack across his forehead and down his eye.
Okay. I don't know anything about Franklin Pierce.
Franklin Pierce. I think he's the one I got switched with Polk.
Did you?
Franklin Pierce, I believe... It was either Polk or Pierce. One of them was a really bad drunk, and they lost their son in a train accident just after they got elected. James Buchanan, 15th President of the United States, just before Lincoln. Technically, the Civil War was just barely getting started, and he told Abraham Lincoln, just as he was walking out the door, good luck.
He's the one that believed that to keep unity we had to...
These aren't presidents, but we do have Sioux Indian chiefs Gull, Crazy Horse, Rain in the Face, and Sitting Bull. This is the Council of War to meet Colonel Custer's long knives at Little Bighorn.
Yeah, that's what they have to be with the ranks.
Alright, over here on the other side, I guess this is the other side of the long knives, we've got Major Marcus Reno. And I'm going to move a little bit so we can see General Alfred Howe Terry's face a little bit. And then we got the man, the myth, the legend himself, Colonel Custer.
Called him yellow hair.
And this is Captain Frederick W. Benteen. Oh, this actually might be a really fun, interesting thing. Here we have Alexander Graham Bell, well, supposedly he invented the telephone. Some people say it was Nikola Tesla, though. And that Graham Bell actually stole it. And here we have President Hayes. Now, the reason they actually have this is because Hayes was the first president to actually have the telephone put in. And I think he might have actually been the first president to have electricity installed. I'm not sure on that, but if that is true, he never actually used electricity because both he and his wife were terrified of the light switches. And here we have Thomas Edison. If you ask me, Nikola Tesla would also be a great addition here. Because it's actually a lot of Tesla's design and not Edison's that we use in modern society. We do use some of Edison's, but we use a lot more of Tesla's. Here we have Grover Cleveland. And that is his wife, Frances Folsom. Grover Cleveland is the only president to get married while in office and in the White House. He is also the only president currently to run two non-consecutive terms. He was voted once, and then after a while, one term, he was voted again. So he's both the 22nd and the 24th. Hi everyone, this is President Foreman, here to kind of just say, just after I was talking about Grover Cleveland, couple of women in front of me said they couldn't hear their audio tour because I was being too noisy. And I was really disappointed at the time because this is something that I love, especially American history. And I was really excited, and then suddenly it was like being told, stop, you can't enjoy this anymore. And I got really depressed, and I basically became completely quiet.
I'm sorry, are you alright?
Hmm.
Are you alright? A little bummed?
Yeah.
Okay, just don't talk as loud.
No. Oh, I guess just in case. William McKinley. For me.
Yeah.
Benjamin Harrison. The one who actually installed electricity. I know. Okay, so I forgot a fact.
That's okay.
President Garfield assassinated. He's also the only president to become member of the Supreme Court. He much preferred to be a lawyer. Harry Truman. He was signed. The buck stops here. Famously, but didn't want. A lot of people called him Mike. John F. K. He had a really bad back because his PT boat was blown out from under him in World War II. This replication of the president's desk. Originally, it actually didn't have this in the front where his little John is. President Franklin Roosevelt, had it installed so people didn't see his wheelchair. Over here we have Lyndon B. Johnson. Lyndon B. Johnson liked to skinny dip. They have him in here being sworn in office on an aeroplane because that's where he was when President Kennedy was assassinated in Dealey Plaza in Texas in 1963 in November. A lot of people hated him because he was one of the presidents during the Vietnam War. This won't be put in anyway, who cares? Here we have the worse than Watergate. No. The original Watergate. Alright, we have Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon was president during, I guess, the moon landing. Here we have Buzz, Michael, and Neil. Next. All I remember is that Harding died in office. I don't remember what of. See, from these busts, it's a little harder. This is Herbert Hoover. Hoover Dam. It's named after him. He actually played his clarinet. He actually played his clarinet at the Alright, there's Jimmy Carter, peanut farmer. I think he's currently the oldest living president. He's probably got not much left to go.
He's just retired from doing Habitat for Humanity.
I
He's
know.
got old enough he can't do it anymore.
Yeah, if you've seen him, like on videos or pictures, he looks so awful.
I know, but he's put millions and millions of dollars into that Habitat for Humanity.
I know. And then George Herbert Walker Bush. Boy, did he ever look that young? Holy crap.
Oh, he's dead.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they did Clinton very good.
Oh, this man helped Clinton.
Look at it. Al Gore.